Good morning and greetings on this 13th of February from a very cold and windy Northumberland. After a freezing night, after a thaw yesterday, we've woken to winds and piercing cold. The candle is burning here behind me for all those affected by the pandemic. And I think many of us in this country will have been heartened by good news over the last few days of numbers coming down. And I think it's important to pay tribute to three factors in that. Firstly, of course, the absolutely amazing work of our National Health Service. Secondly, the amazing process by our National Health Service of unrolling the vaccine programme and beginning to reach so many more people, so that we now have a prospect in the next week of people over 65 being able to begin their vaccination programme. And thirdly, I think we have to say a big thank you to ourselves as citizens for the way in which the majority of people have done so much to limit the spread. We're not at the end of things, but maybe in another 6 weeks or a little bit longer, we can begin to have the sort of opportunities that we had earlier last year, and then we can begin to look at the way in which we make sure we don't move into another crisis. So it's very early days, but we do give thanks, particularly for our National Health Service, who have worked incredibly. They have done so much with as much support as they could have, but maybe they could have had more support. And we owe an amazing debt to them over this time. And that's something I'm sure we will return to in national debate again and again in the coming years. Today we have Jesus looking on a crowd. And it's very interesting. Last Saturday, Jesus was looking on a crowd and having compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd and setting out to teach them. Today, in Mark chapter 8, Jesus calls his disciples and says to them, I have compassion for the crowd because they've been here 3 days and have nothing to eat. Of course, the important thing is the symmetry there of the compassion of Jesus for us. And I think that's an amazing picture that we need to hold on to. There was a book, I think, by Vanston, written many years ago. No, it's not by Vanston. It's a book about Julian of Norwich with pity and not with blame. You remember we read Julian of Norwich last March and April. That's how God looks on us, with pity and not with blame, with compassion and not with anger, with love, and that love informs his judgment. And that's an important thing for us to hold on to. In the unfolding of the story today, this leads to Jesus feeding the crowd. In the unfolding of last week's stories, he set out to teach and to heal. And in our own lives, we may need to think about the way in which the compassion of Christ, the compassion of God, is something that we have experienced. But it's not only our experience of the compassion of God that's important. It's our sharing in God's compassionate work for all people. I've talked today about the National Health Service and the vaccinators, and I could have talked about shop workers or drivers or other key workers, our postmen and delivery people who come day by day through the pandemic, through the storms, through the rain, through the snow, and on whom we depend for so much. But we too have our opportunity to share in that compassionate work of God, that compassionate work of Christ. Our canticle song this morning will be the song of St. Teresa, Christ has no body now but yours. And let us remember that as we experience the compassion of Christ, we also have a vocation to share that compassion with those around us. Before I finish, I want to say a little bit about Lent, and that is really to say why I haven't said anything yet. I'm going to say a little bit more about Lent on Monday and Tuesday, and those who are in our benefice will receive a Lent pack before Shrove Tuesday. We haven't forgotten Lent's happening. There are a number of things coming on, but I didn't want to bombard you with things. What's available in our benefice will also be made available online, and particularly through our Facebook pages. So please watch out for that. And so as we seek to live out the compassion of Christ, may God bless us.